So in this last meditation, I was trying to give a little bit of a sense of the spectrum of inquiry, more of a focused intention, seeing through, more of a challenging the thoughts and the emotions. Is this true? Is this true? Who am I? Looking through, which tends to have more of a masculine quality, focused, direct. Even focusing on the breath, focusing on anything specific. And then the opposite end of the spectrum is the inquiry into the unbounded, the qualityless, more of a welcoming, open arms feel to it. So when thoughts, emotions arise, it's not so much that we're directed towards like a sword, cut, 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 cut. It's the opposite end of the spectrum. It's more like come, 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 welcome, welcome, welcome. And they seem like they're opposites. And they are, to a certain extent. But where they're not opposite is when you use these different modes of inquiry, they take you to the same place. The more directed inquiry brings you back to self, no self. And the more open, welcoming inquiry, likewise, it brings you to this place of non-resistance. And eventually letting go. Letting go. If done correctly, they both have a quality of finding a place of non-resistance. There's no question that using will to slow the mind down, to still the mind, or still the emotions, or even using the will to use an inquiry technique. Is this true? Is this true? Is this belief true? There's a usefulness to that. There's no question. There's no question. But what I'm pointing towards is recognizing that that type of effort eventually wants to transform into effortlessness. And the only thing that's effortless is letting go. We're trying to tune into something that wants to happen on its own, that is happening on its own. And so the natural state of identity is not to identify, not to contract, not to identify as. Its natural state, its natural movement is to disidentify. The entire awakening process is a process of disidentification. Disidentifying from thought, emotion, body, sensation, energy. An unhooking of identity. It doesn't mean annihilation of experience. Thoughts are still there, emotions are still there, sensations are still there, energy is still there. The identity dissolves out of it, though. And of course, when identity disidentifies from form, it's going against the grain of survival. And so it's useful to have an expectation that there's going to be some resistance there, because that identity that we know conceptually and even experientially to a certain degree is not who I am, yet it sure feels like it's dying. It sure feels like it's real. And it does. Of course it does. Identification is there. That's the truth to that part of our experience. It believes that it is that. But eventually when that identity breaks free, then we're able to rest as that no self, in that place where the function of consciousness to identify and self-reference just stops functioning. dissolves. You can't do that, you can't effort that, you just rest, you abide, you rest. And then that function just dissolves on its own. Effort can only take us so far. Each one of us will recognize that it takes us to a wall in our experience. We recognize that by our very efforting, we're causing fixation. There's a sense like I can't get out of my own way.
Do you think that directing attention is the same as efforting?
Very good question. It can, but there's a usefulness to just having an intention, in the sense of pointing our awareness to look somewhere, to have a general intent. But that's where I often share that point and then drop. Use the intention, the effort, just enough to point it in the right direction, and then let go of it. Let it go, and then let it emerge again, if that's what's called for. But let it come to you. You can still have that intention. That's really the sweet spot of this whole contemplation, of this whole theme that we're discussing today, is effort versus not effort. Doing versus not doing.